I'm sharing the screen with a well-labeled diagram of sperm. Next, here we have the abnormalities in the sperms. Right over here, the normal sperm, how the structure is. And then from there onwards, the structure, it keeps on changing. So here you see the head of the sperm in the first picture. The head is swollen. So the head, it appears to be giant, and opposite to it, you can see the head, it becomes very small, and it is micro. Then on the other hand, you can see the double-headed sperm, and opposite to it, you can see the body of the sperm, it is divided into two. Instead of head, the body is divided into two with two flagellae. And then here we can see this picture, the head of the sperm is prolonged, it is projected, and then the head is roughly textured, and you can see the middle portion of the sperm, the middle piece, it is abnormal. And this is the transverse section of the seminiferous tubules. This is the animated one, or the sketch of the seminiferous tubule. This is the actual slide diagram, what you see under the microscope. Let me quickly tell you once again about how this spermatogenesis takes place with the help of a sketch diagram. So here we have the first of the cell which is ready to undergo the process of spermatogenesis, and that cell, it is known as the spermatogonia, or the sperm mother cell. It is ready to undergo meiosis. So before undergoing meiosis, it undergoes mitosis and increases in number. So the number of spermatogonia will increase, and out of so many spermatogonia which are formed, some of the spermatogonia, they will grow, they will increase in size, and these spermatogonia, they get prepared to undergo the process of the meiosis, that is reduction division. So these cells, they are called as the primary spermatocytes. They are called as primary spermatocytes. Now, these primary spermatocytes, they will undergo meiosis 1 and then give rise to two cells. So here we have these two cells. They have undergone reduction division, meiosis 1, and these two cells, they are haploid in number, whereas this spermatogonia, it is diploid in number. So this spermatogonia will undergo meiosis 1 and transform into the secondary spermatocytes. So these cells, they are called as secondary spermatocytes. Okay, now these spermatocytes, they will undergo meiosis 2. They will undergo meiosis 2 and give rise to the next generation of the cells. These next generation of cells, they are called as spermatids. They are called as spermatids. So there we go. So meiosis 2 is completed, and then these spermatids are formed from secondary spermatocytes. So all these stages are very important, very crucial, and this particular sketch diagram is also very important from the examination point of view. Okay, now coming to the further developments, what we see is that these spermatids, they will combine, they will now attach to the Sertoli cells, and these Sertoli cells, they will help in transforming these spermatids into spermatozoa. So from here, the spermatozoa, they will be formed. So there you go. I'm drawing the sperms over here. So this stage, it is the spermatozoa, that is sperms. So now the spermatozoa are formed. So from year to year, the process, it is called as spermatogenesis. The process, it is known as spermatogenesis. Transformation of spermatogonia into spermatozoa. Okay, now the formation of these spermatozoa, it takes place when the spermatids combine with Sertoli cells, and the transformation takes place. This process of formation of spermatozoa when the spermatids combine with Sertoli cells is known as spermiogenesis. It is known as spermiogenesis. Okay, so spermatogenesis is a different process. Spermiogenesis is a short process which is very different from spermatogenesis. So you need to differentiate these two different processes, spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis. Okay, now once the spermatozoa are formed, now these spermatozoa, they will be released from the seminiferous tubules into the rete testis. So spermatozoa will be released from seminiferous tubules. So I'll write down here seminiferous tubules, in short STS. Seminiferous tubules, the spermatozoa are formed and they will be released into the rete testis, and the process by which the spermatozoa are released into the rete testis, you call this process as spermiation. So spermiation is the process of the transfer of spermatozoa into the rete testis. So in this way, the sperms will move into rete testis, and from rete testis, they'll move into the vasa efferentia, from vasa efferentia into the epididymis, epididymis into the vasa deferens, and from vasa deferens into the ejaculatory duct. So this is the complete sequence, and this is the formation of the spermatozoa from the spermatogonia. Now, on the other hand, there are some important hormones which are responsible for all these changes. So what is the hormonal control which is happening behind the scene, that we will focus now. The spermatogenesis, it is initiated at the age of puberty, that we know very well. And there is one hormone which is released immediately once the male individual attains the puberty. This hormone, it is released from the endocrine gland which is located in the brain. So that endocrine gland, it is known as hypothalamus. Now this gland, it releases one of the important hormone. This hormone, it is called as GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. So this hormone, it will stimulate the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. There are two hormones which are released by this gland. Number one hormone, it is known as the LH hormone. And number two, it is known as the FSH hormone. So we have the luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone. So these are the two hormones which are released by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Luteinizing hormone, once it is released, it will be carried by the blood and it will reach the interstitial cells. So this hormone, it will stimulate the interstitial cells, or the cells are also called as the Leydig cells. In return, these cells, they release the male androgen, that is the testosterone. The testosterone hormone, it stimulates the process of spermatogenesis. On the other hand, we have this follicular stimulating hormone. It stimulates the Sertoli cells, the cells which provide nourishment to the sperms. Now, these Sertoli cells, they perform the most important process, that is the process of spermiogenesis. Follicular stimulating hormone, it is stimulating the Sertoli cells to transform these immature spermatids into the mature spermatozoa. Once these are formed, Sertoli cells, they will release a special hormone. This hormone, which is called as inhibin. So So once the sperms are formed and they are formed sufficiently, this hormone, it will be released, and it will be released by the Sertoli cells. And this hormone, what it does is it goes to the hypothalamus, and it inhibits the gonadotropin hormone. It inhibits the gonadotropin releasing hormone. That means it stops the production of the gonadotropin hormone. So hypothalamus, it will come to know that, okay, there are sufficient spermatozoas formed for time being. So the gland, it will stop releasing this gonadotropin releasing hormone, and in return, the anterior pituitary gland, it will stop producing LH and FSH. So there you go. How the hormones, they are released by the important glands, the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary gland, and then you see the role of the hormones which are helpful in the process of spermatogenesis. And on the other hand, we also have spermiogenesis, which is carried out. So next, we have the female reproductive system in human beings. And we know very well the different organs which are present in female reproductive system. So let us learn like how we learn for male reproductive system in humans. So we have primary sex organs in females, that is ovaries. Then comes the secondary or the accessory sex organs, which includes the different ducts. Like accessory ducts are there, pair of oviducts, and these paired oviducts, they are called as the fallopian tubules. Then followed by uterus, cervix, and vagina, that is commonly known as birth canal. And also there are accessory glands like mammary glands are present in females. The external genitalia, it is the vulva. So let us find out all these structures one by one. Here we have the picture of the female reproductive system. All the parts are mentioned here. Number one part, the primary reproductive organs found in humans, that is ovaries. So here you can find these oval shaped, which are almond like, right? So you can say that ovaries are oval shaped, almond like. They are just the shape of an almond, right? And these ovaries, they are attached to the walls of the abdomens and also to the uterus. So to the uterine walls and also to the walls of the abdomens, these ovaries, they are attached, and they are attached with the help of a connective tissue. This connective tissue, it is known as mesovarium. Mesovarium. So I'm writing over here. You can write down. You can also write down. Draw a rough picture of this, and you can mention the name mesovarium. Mesovarium, it is a connective tissue which is helpful in the attachment of the ovaries to the walls of the abdomens and also uterus. Okay. So there we have the ovaries which are present in pairs. So here is 1 and here is 2. So how many pairs? 1 pair of ovaries are present. And then just adjacent to the ovaries continues the oviduct. So here we have the oviduct, number 1, number 2. So on the either sides, you can find this oviduct. Then this oviduct, it has the funnel-shaped structure. This funnel-shaped part, it is known as infundibulum. Infundibulum, it has finger-like projections. These finger-like projections are known as fimbriae. So over here, you can see it's written here, fimbriae. B-R-I-A-E, fimbriae, F-I-M-B-R-I-A-E, fimbriae. These are finger-like projections which are helpful in engulfing the ova after ovulation. Then these finger-like projections, they are present at the periphery of the oviducal funnel or the infundibulum. So this expanded part of the oviduct, it is known as oviducal funnel. Oviducal funnel. Why it is known as oviducal funnel? Because the shape of the oviduct, it is funnel shaped, And this part of the oviduct, it is helpful in engulfing, or it is helpful in receiving the ovum after the ovulation. So it is called as oviducal funnel, or it is known as infundibulum. Infundibulum. So those are the different names given for this infundibulum. Okay. Now, this funnel-shaped structure, it continues as a tube, and then it grows a little bit wide immediately after a short extension. It grows wide. So this wider portion of the oviduct, it is called as ampulla. This wider portion of the oviduct, it is called as ampulla. Please make a note of it. It is called as ampulla. This is the portion or the place where the ovum, it migrates from the oviducal funnel and it reaches ampulla and stays here for a temporary period of time. Sperms are released, and these sperms also travel and reach the ampulla, and this is the place where the fertilization between the male and the female gametes take place. That is the place. Okay, so that place, it is called as ampulla. So here I have drawn and shown you. Slightly I have modified this picture and I am showing it to you here itself. Okay. Now, from the either sides, this fallopian tubule or the oviducts, they will join together at one junction. So this junction, it is called as isthmus. This junction, it is called as isthmus. I-S-T-H-M-U-S. Isthmus. Okay. So far it's clear. Now, coming to the isthmus, which continues into a common part. This common part, which is pear-shaped, you call this part as uterus. You call this part as uterus. Okay. Now, the oviducts on the either sides, they are internally lined by a special epithelial tissue. So that epithelial tissue, it is the ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. Ciliated columnar epithelium, it lines the inner walls of the oviduct. Now, why this ciliated columnar epithelium is there? So that when the ovum is engulfed into the oviducts, this ovum, it is directed towards the ampulla. So this epithelium, it helps in the movement of the ovum from oviduct, that is infundibulum, till ampulla, until it reaches ampulla. So this epithelium, it helps in the movement of the ovum. So that is about the parts of the female reproductive system. Now coming to the important part, that is uterus. Here we have another picture showing how the parts are arranged. Now, before going to the uterus, let me tell you about this uterus, where exactly it is present, right? You have understood about oviducts. If you have any questions, you can raise before going into uterus. We'll be discussing about ovaries section in detail. Okay, we will come back to the ovaries, but before that, we will complete this uterus and the other nominal parts which are present. So here is the picture of the female reproductive system shown from the lateral sides, and you need to know, which is very important, how uterus is described. Now, uterus, it is a single part. It is a single part. The previous picture you have seen the uterus, which is very single, and this part, it is hollow. That means it has a cavity within. It is a muscular part of the female reproductive system, which is pear-shaped. The shape of the uterus is pear-shaped. Okay, and this uterus, it is very well supported by the special connective tissue, which is present, known as the ligament. So ligament, the connective tissue is present around the uterus, which supports the uterus, right? Why it supports the uterus? Why? Because uterus, it holds the fetus during the pregnancy. So in that way, it is very well supported by the ligament, and moreover, this uterus, it is attached to the pelvic wall. So this complete description, it is about uterus. Right, now where exactly this uterus is located? Now this uterus, it is present between the urinary bladder and the rectum. So where is this rectum identified in this picture? So here is the large intestine. So the part of the large intestine is rectum. That's the last part of the large intestine. So here is the rectum, which is identified, which opens outside the body with the help of this opening. And on the other hand, we have the urinary bladder. So here is the urinary bladder. So this is rectum, this is urinary bladder. So in between these two parts of the body, you can find the uterus. So here is the uterus. So this complete fold, it is of the uterus. Okay, so you can also see the ovary on one side, and also you can have the extension of the ovary, that is the oviduct, that also can be seen. But this side, as we are seeing the section, this side of the reproductive organs are missing. So you can understand that it is the longitudinal section. Okay, so here we have this picture very clearly showing the location of the uterus, which is so important. Make sure it is very, very important, and it is located between the urinary bladder and the rectum. Instead, it's written here large intestine. So you can write down specifically where it is located. It is located between rectum and urinary bladder. So it opens into the next part. So uterus is divided into two parts that we should be aware of. That it has the broad part, which is known as, it has the broad part, which is known as the womb. The broad part of the uterus, it is known as the womb, and the narrow part, it is known as the cervix. The narrow part, it is known as the cervix. So there are two parts, the broad part and the narrow part. Broad part, this part of the uterus, it is broad, and it is located on the top. It is located on the top. So I'll just draw it over here. You have seen the picture of the uterus in the previous slide. So here is uterus, which is broad at the top, and it gets narrower at the bottom. So the narrow part, it is lying at the bottom, and broad part is lying at the top. This is how you will be differentiating the two parts. So in other words, you can say the broad part, it is the upper part, and narrow part, it is the lower part of the uterus. Broad part, upper part, it is known as womb, and lower part, that is narrow, it is known as the cervix. Okay, now this cervix, it is also called as the birth canal. In common terms, it is also called as the birth canal. So this is how externally uterus is described, externally. Okay, now what we will do is we will study the internal layers of uterus, which is very well developed. It should be developed. Why? Because the fetus is developing within the uterus. So we will just try to find out what are the layers which are present in the uterus. Okay, so far I think it is quite clear. So let us try to find out uterus anatomy. It states that uterus, it has 3 layers. 3 distinctive layers are present, and these 3 distinctive layers, they are made up of tissues. So what are these 3 distinctive layers? Number 1, it is known as the perimetrium. Number 1 layer, it is known as perimetrium. Number 2 layer, it is known as myometrium. Number 3, it is known as endometrium. Okay, so this is the most important part of the female reproductive system, not only from the system point of view, but also from the examination point of view. It's very, very important. Okay, many times the question was asked, and sometimes, you know, they will just figure out the 3 parts, like they will ask you only about endometrium or what is myometrium, and which part of the uterus is helpful in the process of implantation, which part is helpful in the process of the parturition, right? So that is how the questions will appear. So let us try to describe these 3 of the layers. The perimetrium, it is the outer thin. So I'll draw it and describe the 3 of the layers. Perimetrium, it is the outer thin layer of the uterus. This is how it comes, like this. Outer thin layer it is. Okay, that's the first layer. And this layer, it is membranous layer. Means it has a membrane, it has a layer of tissue, and that tissue, it is a very simple tissue which is present around. And then comes myometrium. Myometrium, it is the middle layer, just lying below the perimetrium, and this layer, it is very thick. So I will use a red coloration over here, indicating that this layer, it is highly muscular. That's why it is known as myometrium. See the word there, myo, it refers to muscles. There it is, myo. So it is the middle layer, it is very thick, and the type of muscles present in this layer, they are not the skeletal muscles, they are not the cardiac muscles, but they are the smooth muscles. So here I write down smooth muscles. Okay, so uterus, it is highly muscular, with the second layer present just below the perimetrium. That layer, it is called as myometrium. Okay, now these muscles, they are very much active when the process of the parturition takes place. That means when the baby is delivered outside, at that time, this layer, it gets highly active. Right, so the contraction of these muscles take place, and because of these contraction taking place, the baby is pushed out from the cervix. So this is the cervix, and this part of the uterus, you call it as womb, which is broad and expanded part. And you can see the muscularity over here. It gets reduced when it reaches the cervix part, whereas in the womb, you can see the muscularity, it is very well developed. Now, coming to the endometrium, the third layer, the innermost layer. So endometrium, it is the innermost layer, and it contains glands. So here I will just draw the innermost layer in the form of cells, and mostly these cells, they are glandular, can also find that there are many blood vessels. So it is glandular and vascular. Okay, so the other term is endometrium. It is highly glandular and with rich vascularization. During the menstruous phase, when the menstruous cycle takes place in females, there is one phase, the menstruous phase. During this phase, the endometrial walls, these walls, they will be completely removed. They will be completely terminated out from the body. And once this phase gets completed, the next phase, you can find the proliferation of the new layer, proliferation of the new glandular epithelium. Along with that, even the blood vessels, they will be formed fresh. So this endometrium, the third innermost layer, it will take part in the menstrual phase. Why this endometrium and myometrium is important? I told you that myometrium, it is helpful in the delivery process, whereas endometrium, it is not only helpful in the menstrual phase, but also the process of implantation takes place with the help of a specialized tissue. This specialized tissue, it is called as placenta. So the formation of placenta also takes place with the help of these endometrial walls. And the baby, it gets the proper nourishment through this placenta, and the connection appears later on, and it grows and it transforms into a tube. That tube, it is called as the umbilical cord. It is called as umbilical cord. So through this cord as well, the baby, it will get the proper nourishment, and all other various metabolic activities will continue to happen. Ovaries, they are considered to be the primary female sex organs that produce female gametes, and also the ovarian steroid hormones. And these ovaries, they are located on the either sides of the lower abdomens. They are attached to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligament. I told you the name of the ligament, what is helpful in the attachment, which is known as mesovarium. Then the outer region of the ovaries consists of developing follicles, and middle form the stroma. So here we have the picture of the ovary describing all the parts. That's the complete section of the ovary. So here the section, it shows the peripheral region. So here we can see the peripheral region. I'm marking it with yellow coloration, the peripheral, and you can find the central region. Now central region, it has again two different portions. What is that central region known as? The central region, it is known as the stroma. Here I mark the central portion. Already I have marked with yellow coloration. This complete internal portion, it is known as stroma. Okay. Right. Now this stroma, it is further divided into two different regions. This is the outer region, which I am marking with red coloration. Right. This outer region of stroma, it is known as cortex, which is very much near to or close to the periphery of the ovaries. So this is the peripheral region of the ovaries. And then within the stroma, that is internal to the cortex, you have the inner region of the stroma, which is known as the medullary region. It is known as medulla. So cortex is the outer region of stroma, and medulla is the inner region of the stroma. With the help of these different regions, we can easily, identify the different parts or different structures present in the ovaries. Towards the peripheral regions, you can find there are different stages of primordial follicles. That's the first early follicles. Then comes the primary follicles, the secondary follicles, then the tertiary follicles. Then you will come across the immature follicle, then the Graafian follicle. So here I'll name down this follicle. It is known as the Graafian follicle. The mature follicle, which has the secondary oocyte, that is ovum. So it has the mature ovum. So here it is the secondary oocyte, which is fully formed, and then it is ready to undergo the process of ovulation. So here it is the process of ovulation, which is also shown here at the peripheral region. So this Graafian follicle or the mature follicle, it will rupture, releasing the secondary oocyte. This ovum, it is also known as secondary oocyte. Please make a note of it. This diagram is also very important. Okay. So secondary oocyte, which is also called as ovum, it will be released from the peripheral regions of the ovary. The process of releasing the ovum out of the ovary, it is known as ovulation. Okay, so once this ovum is released outside, the remaining follicular cells present in this Graafian follicle, these follicular cells will remain inside. Only the ovum will be released outside. That only one cell will be released outside. Remaining all other follicular cells will be restricted. They will not be released out, and they will group together and they form the endocrine part. The endocrine part, which releases several hormones. That endocrine part is known as corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum is the one which is releasing the progesterone hormone, estrogen hormone. So these are the female hormones which are released by the ovaries. Okay, medulla, which lies in the middle, it has rich supply of blood vessels. So you can see here the blood vessels, both the gonado artery is there as well as the vein is there. So these are the blood vessels which are found in the medulla of the stroma. Along with blood vessels, you can also find nerve innervations. You can find there are other connective tissues present within the stroma, and all these tissues together, they will form rich vascularization. Along with vascularization, you can see the glandular portion also, where the hormones are released. So in this way, the ovaries, they are developed, they are fully formed when the female attains the maturity. Coming to the next, the accessory glands which are present in females. Along with accessory glands, the genitalia. So what are the accessory glands? The glands are mammary glands. So quickly, let us try to find out what are present in the mammary glands. The section of the mammary gland shows that here you go, the section of the mammary glands. Inside the mammary glands, what is present, right? So when we take the section, we will come to know what is present inside the mammary glands. So what we find inside the mammary glands is that there are two tissues. Okay, there are two tissues. One, it is the fatty tissues, which is present in bulk. Fatty tissue, it is present in bulk. And the other tissue which is present, it is the actual tissue which is required. And that tissue, it is the glandular tissue. It is the glandular tissue. Okay, so this fatty tissue, it provides a cushion support to the mammary glands as well as the glandular tissue. And this glandular tissue, it is divided into 15 to 20 glandular lobes. These glandular lobes, they are called as the mammary lobes. So in the picture, you will come to know. Then these glandular mammary lobes, they are consisting of several partitions, which we call them as the alveoli. Right, they are grouped into number of partitions. These partitions, they are actually in the form of cells, so they are actually cells, so we call these as alveoli. So these lobes are further divided into these group of cells, what we call them as these alveoli. Now these alveoli, they open into the mammary tubules. They open into mammary tubules. Mammary tubules continue as mammary ducts. Then these mammary ducts, they expand a little bit to be called as mammary ampulla. And then these ampullae, they will further get thinned, and they transform into ducts, which we call them as the lactiferous ducts. The ducts are called as lactiferous ducts, and these lactiferous ducts, they ultimately open outside the body at the tip of the glands, what we call them as the teats or the nipples. So there we can find number of these lactiferous openings from where the secretions will be coming out. So these glandular mammary lobes, they are the ones which will be secreting out the secretions, which we call them as the milk. And this is fed to the developing baby. Okay, that's how the mammary glands are. And here we have the picture of the mammary glands explaining every bit of it. So all the parts are mentioned there. What are the different parts? The glandular tissue. Over here you can see this glandular tissue, which is divided into number of lobes, and these lobes are called as the mammary lobes. These mammary lobes will give rise to the alveoli. Alveoli will give rise to mammary tubules, and these mammary tubules will continue as mammary ducts. Over here mammary ducts are there, and these mammary ducts, they will further give rise to swellings. They swell to form the ampullae, and these ampullae, after swelling, they again become very thin, and they are referred as the lactiferous ducts. And these lactiferous ducts, they open outside the body at the tips. Okay, so that's about the mammary glands.